I had always loved taking long drives, especially in the quiet of the night. The stillness of the darkness around me and the soft hum of the engine were always comforting to me, but little did I know that one particular long drive would turn into a nightmare that would haunt me for the rest of my life. It was a cold and misty night when I decided to take a long drive to clear my mind. I had been feeling overwhelmed with stress lately and needed some time alone. As I got into my car, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I turned on the radio and drove off into the night. The road was surrounded by tall trees that seemed to loom over me. The branches formed eerie shadows against the moonlit sky. But I paid no attention to them. My mind was racing with thoughts of my own. As I drove deeper into the woods, I noticed that the road was getting darker and more desolate, but I didn't feel scared. Instead, I felt a sense of tranquility. That is, until I saw a figure on the side of the road. It was a woman, dressed in white, and her hair was disheveled. She looked like she was in a state of distress. I slowed down my car and rolled down the window. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaking a little. The woman turned to me. Her face was pale and her eyes were bloodshot. She didn't say anything, but instead pointed towards the woods. I followed her gaze and saw what looked like a car accident. I immediately got out of my car and ran towards the site, leaving the woman behind. But as I got closer, I realized that the car was mangled and there was no sign of any survivors. I turned to go back to my car, but when I looked back, the woman was nowhere to be seen. Shaken by the strange encounter, I quickly got into my car and drove off, but the eerie feeling lingered with me. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched. As I drove on, I noticed that the trees seemed to be closing in on me. The once peaceful silence was now replaced with an unsettling stillness. The mist had thickened, and I could barely see the road ahead of me. Suddenly, I heard a loud thud on my roof. I looked up and saw a pair of glowing red eyes staring back at me. I screamed and hit the brakes, causing my car to skid and come to a halt. I sat there, trembling, and looked around, but there was nothing there. I tried to calm myself down, convincing myself that it was just my imagination, but the feeling of being watched only intensified. I decided to continue driving, hoping to get out of these woods as soon as possible, but the road seemed to go on forever, and there was no sign of civilization anywhere. As I drove on in utter fear, suddenly my car jerked to a stop. I tried to start the car again, but it wouldn't budge. Panicking, I got out of my car and lifted the hood, but I had no idea what I was looking for. That's when I heard footsteps approaching me from the darkness. I stumbled back and saw a man, dressed in all black, emerging from the mist. His face was contorted in an evil grin, and he walked towards me with slow, deliberate steps. My heart was racing, and I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with fear. But then, the man suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked up. The same pair of glowing red eyes from before were staring down at us from a tree. The man's expression changed from amusement to terror. He screamed and ran back into the darkness, disappearing from sight. I didn't waste any time and quickly got into my car. Miraculously, the car started, and I drove off as fast as I could, never stopping until I was finally out of the woods. I never took that long drive again. That experience left me with a deep fear of the unknown, and even now, I can't shake off the feeling that I am being watched wherever I go. I learned my lesson: always be careful when taking long drives. You never know what horrors might be lurking in the darkness.